Welcome back. In this demonstration, we are going to talk about our 6-cube David Smith sculpture. We've looked at it already, and today what you're going to do is you're going to look at drawing the line decoration on the outside edges of your sculpture. So in the previous session, we made all of our what will be our cubes, and we've gotten them to this stage where they were flat. Now you're going to color lines on all of them, and each one should have a different kind of line pattern. And you can see how I've made this line pattern on each different one. Okay, once you make your line pattern, you have to think about how is that line pattern going to transfer over into a three-dimensional form. So number one, we are kind of confined by the idea that we're going to have a three-dimensional form, and we want to have some kind of line. On our line, we want to make that surface texture, the pattern, or the repetition, and we want to have it continue from one side to the other so that we can have unity, so that everything in our sculpture is working together and every side of our cube is working together. So to get started, you're going to need your flattened pieces of paper that we've created already. Then in order to figure out the places you're going to color and the places you're not going to color, you need to fold it up into a box. You'll notice that I've got these X's on my sculpture to help remind me which sides are going to be in and which sides are going to be out. If we take this and we fold it together, we're going to use this little tab like we did before. We're going to use that tab to glue to the inside, and then one flap down, and then one on the top. And you'll notice how this line pattern lines up. Okay, same thing on the bottom, folding, and the one that's on top. Then after you get it kind of folded up, you're going to mark your X's. So take a moment right now and fold up all your boxes while I fold this one up. I'll pause the video in class. Take the flap with the glue tab and fold that in first, and then fold whichever sides you want in and one over the top. Then fold the other side together, glue tab in first, then whichever ones you want over the top. Okay, now that you have your box folded up, you're going to actually take the top flap that you want to be on the top, and you're going to lift that up and do nothing to it. Then take your Sharpie and just draw a little X on the next flap. Draw a little X on the next flap, and draw a little X on the next flap. Then fold them back in so you can turn your box over and do the same thing on the opposite side. So turning my box over, here's the top flap. I'm going to do nothing to it, and I'm going to put a little X there. Open the flap, a little X, open the flap, and a little X, and then open the flap. Okay, once you have all your X's, if we fold our box back down, it should look like this. You'll have two X's. Flipping it over, you'll have the X's on the tops and bottoms. Now you're going to design your lines. Now as far as your lines, you can use whatever kind of lines you want. We just looked at some lines in class, and if we haven't, I'll put the PowerPoint up and we'll look at those. And basically, you want your lines to create some surface texture using pattern and repetition. And again, you want unity. You want everything to work together. You don't want it to be scribbly. You don't want it to be off. You want it to look nice. Okay? So depending on how you do this, you could use wavy lines. You could use zigzag lines. You could use a variety of thin and thick by drawing two lines and then coloring in. You might run into a place where you need to fill a spot that isn't necessarily able to be filled by just a line, so you might have to fill in a little shape like that. You can see I've done it here on this one, and you can see on this one I've put some little dots in just to create the difference of line. Okay, so if I look now at my cube here, I think, all right, where do I want to get started? I start maybe right here by just making a dot so that I can do this kind of dot pattern. As I do this pattern, I go around the dot, and maybe I'll put another dot here, and I'll just put a few dots around for me to work with. Okay, now as I do this, I have to think about the other side, but I'm going to show you that in a minute. Here's my second one. And as you do this, draw nicely with your Sharpie so that you have good craftsmanship and your lines look nice when you're done. You want someone to see your artwork and say, wow, that's nicely done, and not, oh, those are sloppy lines, because this is going to be part of a full sculpture at the end. So you want to make sure that that sculpture really rings true by the end. Now, here I'm getting into this area that has an X. We don't really need to color or make lines into that part. If it makes you feel better, you can. If it makes you feel like you're going to get more consistent work, you can draw into that area. But know that you will not see anything on that X'd out area. Okay, continuing the top portion here. Okay, now I've filled everything except for these boxes because they have X's in it. Now I'm just going to rotate this one over, boom, like that. So I can still see this pattern, but I don't see this part here because I haven't done it yet. Now I need to decide, well, what else am I going to do? Maybe I want a dot to be right here. And maybe another little one here. And a little one right there. Okay, going on with this idea. Now I might have to take this beginning line here and go around that dot. Uh-oh, around it there. Now, these two still have X's on them. So as I'm thinking, I think to myself, well, this area doesn't matter. I'll just leave it like that. This area up here also doesn't matter. So I don't have to be so careful about it. Notice there I just kind of zipped both of those lines together because I didn't have enough space. Now the last part, I flip it over one more time, and these two areas I do need to think about because these ones don't have the X's on them and they're going to be on the top and on the bottom. So I'm going to have to take those into consideration. Okay, so as I go through here, I'm going to make another dot here and another dot here and one more down here. I'm also going to have to think of this side and how these lines come together with those lines. So you're going to have to do a little bit of thinking on this last part. I'm going to start right here, and as I pull that first line over, I'm going to look here and say, well, here's the next line that I'm going to line that up with. Then I look to the next one. Alright, I'm going to start here, flip it over, I'm going to line it up with that line. And you're just going to have to think, where am I going from one side to the next? See how I brought all those over? Then I can start doing this a little quicker. And you'll get better at this as you go on because you have so many cubes to do. But the first time it might not be easy. Okay, now we have the top and the bottom to deal with. At this point, you're going to have to fold it up into a cube so that you know how the top and the bottom interact with the sides. Okay, now you'll see that I've got some coming over here. I'm going to have to think of, well, how do I want this to come together? Maybe I want this line to come around the edge and line up into this one. Then I might want to just make some curves here and line them up into this. Okay, so you're going to have to just make sure that they match up on the tops and the sides. Then I might put a little circle here, knowing that I'm going to go around that circle. And this is the part where you're going to have to just come up with some creative solutions. Okay, so I met up with that line, and now this line. I'm going to meet up and fill in this space. Okay. Now so you can see how I've completed that so that it actually works from the top to the sides. And coming over here, I'll do the same thing. Looking at this one interacting there, and this one coming up here. Okay, that one meeting there, and then this one coming up over. Okay, so this one playing into those other sides. Okay, so you're going to finish all of your cubes that way. You're going to finish your B color cubes and your A color cubes so that by the end they all have some kind of line with surface texture, and they have unity from one side to the other. And you can see how each of these, as I put them down, are different. And I'll have these examples out, obviously, so you can come look at them and see which ones you'd like to use. Okay? So today you're finishing as many of your cubes as you can, thinking of line, your surface texture and pattern, and unity.